The first signs that the alien race had underestimated humanity came as soon as their soldiers set foot on Earth. The aliens, confident in their superior technology and intelligence, had been observing humanity for years, convinced that the humans would pose no significant challenge. They expected to find a species that would kneel in submission, too fragile and primitive to stand against their might. But as they began their invasion, they were greeted with a surprising, even frightening response. The first few encounters were not as smooth as the aliens had planned. They assumed that the humans would flee, hide, or simply be too weak to mount any real defense. But instead, the humans fought back in ways that defied all logic. In a small town, the aliens' landing team faced fierce resistance. Ordinary humans, armed with nothing more than makeshift weapons, attacked with a determination and bravery that left the aliens stunned. The alien soldiers, well equipped with advanced weapons, were caught off guard. The humans, despite being outgunned, refused to back down. One of the alien commanders, a cold and calculating being named Sylar, watched from the command ship above Earth's atmosphere as reports came in. His soldiers, trained for every battle imaginable, were being pushed back. A small group of humans had managed to ambush a unit of alien soldiers. Their strategy was simple: use their knowledge of the land, attack from the shadows, and exploit every weakness the aliens had. The humans were not fighting like a weak species. They were fighting like warriors, each one willing to lay down their life to protect their home. Sylar could feel a surge of irritation. This wasn't supposed to happen. The humans were supposed to crumble, not resist with such ferocity. Sylar ordered reinforcements, but the humans were already proving that their strength was not just physical. They seemed to have an uncanny ability to adapt and learn. Every time the aliens made a move, the humans countered with something unexpected. They used their surroundings to their advantage, luring the aliens into traps, sabotaging their technology, and even managing to steal a few pieces of alien equipment. It was clear that this was no ordinary species. As the days passed, Sylar and his team began to unravel the mystery. The aliens had always been taught that human beings were limited by their biology, weak, fragile, and easily defeated. But what they were discovering was something far more unsettling. The humans had an ability to adapt not just to their environment, but to any threat that came their way. Their resistance wasn't just a matter of survival. It was as if their very DNA was evolving, shifting to meet the demands of the situation. They were not just fighting back, they were evolving in real time. Sylar's scientists worked around the clock to analyze the DNA of captured humans. They had hoped that by studying the genetics of the humans, they would uncover some weakness, some flaw that they could exploit. What they found instead was something that filled them with fear. The human genome was far more complex than they had anticipated. There was a dormant gene within human DNA, one that could be triggered under extreme stress. When activated, this gene enhanced every aspect of human physiology, making them faster, stronger, and more intelligent. The aliens had never encountered a species with such a unique and unpredictable advantage. The alien scientists were baffled. They had studied countless species throughout the universe, but none had shown such potential. This gene, hidden deep within the human genome, was something they had never seen before. It was not something that could be easily suppressed or erased. It was part of who humans were. It seemed that every time they tried to analyze it, the gene would adapt, changing its structure and making it impossible to fully understand. They realized that this gene was more than just an anomaly. It was a weapon that could turn the tide of the entire war. Sylar's mind raced as he considered the implications. The aliens had underestimated humans for far too long. They had assumed that Earth would be an easy conquest, a world ripe for the taking. But now, they faced a problem they couldn't solve. This gene, this hidden power within humans, was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The aliens had weapons that could destroy entire planets, but they couldn't destroy something so deeply embedded in the DNA of their enemies. The humans' greatest strength lay within their own bodies, and that was something the aliens could not control. Desperation began to set in among the alien leadership. They realized that if they couldn't find a way to neutralize this gene, they would lose the war. The humans, despite their lack of advanced technology, had become a threat far beyond what the aliens had imagined. The aliens were not prepared for a species that could evolve in the heat of battle, a species that could turn their own weaknesses against them. It was a terrifying thought. In response, the aliens began to experiment more aggressively. They captured more humans, conducting cruel and invasive tests, trying to unlock the full potential of the human gene. But the more they experimented, the more they realized how little they understood about humanity. Every test seemed to produce unpredictable results. Some humans were able to access the power within their DNA without any external triggers, while others only activated it under extreme conditions. It became clear that there was no rhyme or reason to the power within humans. It was as unpredictable as the humans themselves. Meanwhile, on Earth, the human resistance was growing stronger. News of the alien invasion spread across the globe, and people from all walks of life came together to fight back. Nations that had once been divided put aside their differences in the face of a common enemy. People who had never held a weapon in their lives were now learning to fight alongside seasoned soldiers. The humans were uniting, and with each victory, they unlocked more of their potential. The dormant gene within them began to awaken in full force. It wasn't just the physical enhancements that made the humans dangerous. It was their ability to think and act with incredible speed. The human mind, when pushed to its limits, could process information faster than any computer the aliens had ever created. They learned to outthink the aliens, using tactics that the invaders couldn't predict. Every time the aliens thought they had the upper hand, the humans found a way to turn the tables. Sci-Fi, watching from his command ship, could no longer deny the truth. The aliens had miscalculated. They had assumed that victory was inevitable, that their superior technology and knowledge would make short work of the human race. But the humans were proving them wrong. The more the aliens learned, the more they realized that they had underestimated humanity's true potential. The revelation struck Sci-Fi with full force. This was not a war between two species. It was a war of evolution. The humans were not just fighting for survival. They were evolving, adapting, and growing stronger with every challenge they faced. And if the aliens didn't find a way to stop them soon, they might very well lose the war. As Sci-Fi looked out over Earth, he understood one thing with terrifying clarity. This wasn't just a battle for resources, power, or territory. It was a battle for the future of the galaxy. And humanity, with its unpredictable, evolving nature, was far more dangerous than the aliens had ever imagined. The alien invasion of Earth had begun with high hopes of a swift and easy conquest. The extraterrestrial species, advanced and powerful, had observed humanity from afar for years. Their scientists had studied every known aspect of human biology, history, and behavior. The aliens believed that humans were weak, primitive beings, easy targets for a species as advanced as theirs. The invaders' initial plan was to overpower Earth's defenses in mere hours, asserting control over the planet, and using it as a stepping stone for further expansion in the galaxy. However, things began to unfold in ways they never expected. As soon as the aliens set foot on Earth, the humans reacted in a manner that confused and surprised them. Instead of cowering in fear, people fought back. Initially, it was small groups of civilians, farmers, workers, students, armed with only rudimentary weapons. The alien soldiers, equipped with cutting-edge technology, were more than capable of wiping out entire groups of humans in seconds. Yet, despite being vastly outgunned, humans fought with a desperation and intensity the invaders hadn't anticipated. The aliens began to lose their sense of superiority as one group after another managed to push back. At first, the alien leaders thought it was simply an anomaly, human beings fighting back in a last-ditch effort to defend their homes. But as more skirmishes occurred, it became clear that humanity wasn't reacting like a fragile species. They fought with an unpredictable ferocity, as though every human, no matter their age, size, or strength, had something more than just physical endurance to rely on. This wasn't just survival, it was something deeper. The humans were fighting in ways that didn't make sense to the invaders. Xylar, the leader of the alien forces, observed the chaos unfolding on Earth from his command center. He had seen many species bend to the will of his army. This had always been the alien way. Superior technology meant inevitable conquest. But the humans, they were different. This wasn't just a battle of weapons, it was something far more dangerous. And that danger lay in something the aliens had not considered. Human resistance was becoming organized. Communication between the various human factions was efficient, and they were coordinating attacks with precision. There was a strategy in place, a sense of unity that should not have existed among such a seemingly disjointed species. How could a race so chaotic, so fractured, fight so cohesively? The alien forces tried to deploy their most advanced weapons, energy beams that could melt buildings in seconds, force fields that could stop any projectile, and mechanical war machines designed to crush any resistance were all sent to Earth. Yet each time they encountered humans, they were forced to adapt. Humans weren't using conventional tactics. Instead, they learned quickly. They took alien technology and began to understand it, despite having no formal knowledge of it. They figured out ways to sabotage the invaders' machines and turn their own weapons against them. Xylar's soldiers, despite their superior training, were having a harder and harder time dealing with these unexpected tactics. What confused the alien commander the most was the humans' adaptability. Their methods changed constantly. One moment, they were retreating into forests, and the next, they were launching a full-scale counteroffensive with guerrilla tactics that bewildered even the most seasoned soldiers. The aliens had expected to find weakness in humanity's DNA. They believed that humans' relatively short lifespans and frail bodies made them easy to conquer. But as they studied human DNA more closely, they began to uncover something startling. It wasn't a physical trait. They had already confirmed that the average human body was not on par with their advanced species. No, the surprise lay in humanity's genetic makeup at a deeper, more subtle level. The alien scientists, after months of analysis, had found something extraordinary hidden deep within human DNA. There was a dormant gene, one that had no counterpart in any of the species they had ever encountered. This gene was activated in response to extreme stress or danger. Under such conditions, the human body and mind underwent rapid, extraordinary changes. The gene could trigger increased strength, enhanced reflexes, and heightened mental acuity. But the most unexpected effect was how it allowed humans to adapt to new challenges in real time, almost as though their bodies were evolving with each passing moment. It wasn't just physical strength, it was an entirely new kind of resilience, one that made humans capable of adjusting to threats they had never encountered before. The aliens had never witnessed such an ability, and it left them terrified. The more the aliens studied human DNA, the more they realized how dangerous this genetic trait could be. This wasn't just a race of weak creatures that would kneel to their superior power. This was a species capable of transforming itself in response to the greatest challenges it faced. Humans were not just survivors, they were evolution in motion. It was as though every moment of struggle, every battle they fought, was helping them evolve into something more formidable. Their adaptability had reached a level that even the alien scientists could not comprehend. Xylar, as the leader, began to realize that the humans' resistance was not a mere inconvenience. It was a serious threat to their invasion plans. This dormant gene, once activated, made humans into something that could not be easily defeated. The alien forces had technology that could level cities, but they could not stop an entire species from adapting. Worse still, the gene was unpredictable. Some humans were able to tap into this power with ease, while others needed extreme trauma or danger to activate it. No patterns emerged that the aliens could use to their advantage. Every human was different, and that was a problem they couldn't control. In an attempt to understand the gene better, the aliens captured several humans for experimentation. They subjected the prisoners to various forms of stress, hoping to trigger the gene and study its effects. But no matter what methods they used, they couldn't predict the outcomes. One human might gain the strength to break free, while another might access a form of intelligence that allowed them to outthink their captors. Each human's reaction to the gene seemed to be unique, making it impossible for the aliens to isolate a way to counteract it. As the aliens' understanding of human biology grew, so did their fear. This gene, this power hidden in the human genome, was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The aliens had once believed themselves to be the pinnacle of evolution, their species superior to all others in the universe. But now, faced with the humans' incredible adaptability, they realized that they had underestimated their enemies in the most catastrophic way possible. Back on Earth, the human resistance was growing stronger with every passing day. Small groups of humans, once scattered and disorganized, were now working together in a way that defied logic. There were no longer just pockets of rebellion. They were beginning to unite. They understood now that their survival depended on harnessing the power within them, the power that was encoded in their very DNA. The more they fought, the more they evolved. Siler's once confident demeanor began to crack. The alien forces, despite their advanced technology and strength, were being driven back by humans who were simply learning to adapt faster than the aliens could anticipate. The humans had discovered their secret weapon, each other, and they were becoming more and more united with every passing day. It was clear now. Humanity was no longer just defending itself. It was fighting not only for survival, but to protect something even more important. The aliens could not yet grasp it fully, but the humans were defending their future. And with the secret of their DNA now known, it was a future the aliens would have a hard time controlling. The battle between the alien invaders and humanity had escalated far beyond what anyone could have predicted. The aliens, once so sure of their superiority, were now facing a species they could not fully understand. Every time they thought they had the upper hand, the humans would find a way to fight back, harder, smarter, and with more strength than before. The aliens were not only dealing with a species that had the ability to adapt quickly, they were now facing an evolving enemy, one that seemed to get stronger the more pressure it was put under. As the conflict continued, the aliens began to realize something terrifying. Humans weren't simply responding to the invasion. They were changing. Their genetics were shifting, their abilities growing, and it was all linked to the mysterious gene they had uncovered within human DNA. This gene, which had remained dormant for centuries, was now being triggered by the extreme stress of the invasion, unlocking new levels of strength and intelligence in each human. It was a power that allowed them to survive, to outsmart their enemies, and more importantly, to evolve faster than their invaders could anticipate. The aliens, despite their advanced technology, were helpless to stop this evolution. They had learned much about human biology, but there was still so much they didn't understand. Some humans, when exposed to danger, became almost superhuman in strength. Others developed heightened senses, able to perceive and react to alien technology with extraordinary speed. The more the humans fought, the more they tapped into their hidden potential, as if their bodies and minds were learning to adapt in real time. It was like a switch had been flipped, and the human race was suddenly operating at a level no one could have predicted. The aliens tried everything they could think of to exploit human weaknesses. They captured humans and conducted countless experiments, hoping to find a way to suppress the gene, to turn it off, or to control it. But the more they studied, the more they realized they were facing an impossible task. The gene seemed to adapt along with every attempt to control it. It was as though the human species had a built-in survival mechanism, one that could not be destroyed, only altered and enhanced by every encounter with danger. One of the most alarming discoveries the aliens made was that the gene didn't just affect physical traits. It altered the very way humans thought. The gene enhanced human intelligence in ways that allowed individuals to think faster, process information quicker, and most importantly, strategize better. They could understand and reverse engineer alien technology in mere hours, using it against its creators. What had once seemed like an overwhelming technological superiority now felt like a double-edged sword. The more the aliens advanced their technology, the more the humans found ways to adapt, turning the alien weapons back on them with shocking efficiency. For Xylar, the alien commander overseeing the invasion, it became clear that they were fighting a losing battle. His forces were no longer able to defeat the humans in the field, and the longer the war dragged on, the more the humans seemed to grow in strength. It wasn't just the physical power or intelligence that was increasing. It was their unity. The gene seemed to have an effect on human behavior as well. Where once the human race had been divided by nationalities, cultures, and ideologies, now they fought as one. The invasion had brought them together in a way that no war had ever done before. They had discovered strength in numbers, and this new unity gave them even more of an advantage. It wasn't just humans fighting back anymore. It was humanity as a whole. From cities to rural areas, people were joining forces to resist the invaders. The resistance was no longer just a series of isolated groups, but a global network. And as the humans grew stronger, the aliens' grip on Earth weakened. Their advanced weapons, their once feared fleets of starships, were no match for the ingenuity and adaptability of the human race. The aliens were caught in a game they didn't fully understand, trying to suppress a force they could not control. Desperation began to seep into the alien ranks. Xylar and his commanders discussed drastic measures. The humans' resilience had thrown the invaders off course. And now, it seemed like the only way to win was to destroy everything, to obliterate Earth completely. But even this plan was met with resistance from within the alien ranks. Some of the soldiers began to question whether wiping out the human race was really the answer. The more they fought the humans, the more they began to see the very qualities that made humanity so dangerous. Their drive, their will to survive, their creativity. The humans didn't just give up. They fought. And they fought to the very last breath. Meanwhile, on Earth, the resistance had discovered something that would change the course of the war. After years of surviving, fighting, and scavenging alien technology, humanity had learned how to unlock its full potential. The dormant gene within their DNA had not just made them stronger, it had given them a new understanding of their place in the universe. The more they fought, the more they realized they were part of something bigger than just survival. They were part of a greater evolutionary force that could change the course of history. One human scientist, working alongside the resistance, discovered that the key to unlocking the full potential of the gene was not just about fighting. It was about unity, about humanity coming together, using its collective knowledge and creativity to push beyond its limitations. The more humans worked together, shared ideas, and combined their strengths, the more powerful they became. The gene, once triggered by danger, now began to evolve with purpose, enhancing not just individual abilities but collective ones as well. This discovery became the turning point in the war. With the knowledge that their greatest strength lay in their unity, humans began to organize their forces in a way they never had before. Instead of scattering to fight individually, they formed a coordinated global resistance that combined their knowledge, skills, and resources. Every victory, no matter how small, fueled their progress. Humans were no longer just surviving. They were thriving, and with each passing day, they grew stronger and smarter. Xylar watched this shift in disbelief. He had underestimated the human race from the very beginning. They had evolved before his eyes, becoming something far greater than he had imagined. He had expected to crush them, to conquer Earth with ease. But now, it seemed that the humans were evolving faster than his forces could destroy them. The gene they had unlocked wasn't just about survival. It was about the will to thrive, to adapt, to overcome. The aliens had hoped to control humanity, to bend them to their will. But in the end, It was humanity's greatest strength, its ability to evolve and adapt, that would prove to be their salvation. As the resistance grew more organized and powerful, the aliens found themselves on the defensive, realizing too late that they had underestimated a species capable of more than just survival, a species capable of winning. And so, as the human resistance continued to grow stronger, the fate of the alien invaders hung in the balance. It was no longer a question of whether the humans could survive. The real question now was whether the aliens could adapt fast enough to face an enemy that had outgrown them in ways they had never expected. The alien forces had once been unstoppable. Their technology was light years ahead of anything humanity had ever dreamed of, and they had assumed that Earth's fate was sealed before they even touched down. But now, months into the invasion, things had taken an unexpected turn. The human race, underestimated and written off as a primitive species, had begun to show signs of something far more dangerous than the aliens could have ever imagined. Sylar, the alien commander, had witnessed firsthand how the humans' resistance was growing bolder and more organized with each passing day. What was once a disjointed group of survivors was now a formidable force, one that was beginning to push back against his army. Worse, they were no longer using just guerrilla tactics. The humans had unlocked something within themselves, a force they didn't even fully understand, but that was quickly turning the tide in their favor. The gene that the aliens had uncovered in human DNA was the key to this transformation. When activated, it allowed humans to grow stronger, smarter, faster. What had once been a means of survival in the face of overwhelming danger had now become a weapon. It was no longer just about brute strength. The humans were adapting and evolving with each battle, learning faster than the aliens could anticipate. Each victory, no matter how small, made them stronger. They were no longer simply fighting for their homes. They were fighting for their future. And that future was starting to look brighter with every passing day. Xylar had hoped that their advanced weapons, their superior fleets of ships, would be enough to squash the humans. But now, they were discovering that their own technology wasn't infallible. The humans had started to reverse engineer their weapons, turning the invaders' tools against them. Alien ships, once invincible, were being brought down in aerial dogfights, and alien technology, once cutting edge, was being repurposed by human hands. The humans were using what they had stolen to create new weapons, faster and more efficient than the aliens had anticipated. Sylar had already deployed several waves of his most elite troops, each one more advanced than the last. But no matter how much he threw at the humans, they kept adapting, learning, evolving. The alien soldiers had once been the most skilled warriors in the galaxy. Yet, against humans, they were starting to lose ground. The very traits the aliens had thought would make them superior, technology, strength, intelligence, were no longer enough. In the face of humanity's resilience and relentless adaptation, the aliens were starting to question their own strategy. The alien leadership, once confident in their victory, now faced a dilemma. They had never encountered an enemy like this before. The humans, through sheer willpower and determination, were turning the tide in ways the aliens hadn't even considered. The gene inside human DNA was evolving them faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. In battles, it wasn't just the soldiers who adapted, it was the entire human species. From scientists to civilians, they all shared in this evolutionary power. Even humans who had never fought before were now learning to strategize, to think and act as soldiers. The gene wasn't just a biological advantage. It was an intellectual one too. In their desperation, the aliens began looking for alternative solutions. They tried every weapon in their arsenal, from deadly biological agents to devastating planetary bombardments. But every attempt to weaken the human resistance only fueled it further. The humans were learning how to protect themselves from biological attacks, how to shelter their cities, and how to survive the harshest of environments. The more the aliens pushed, the more the humans learned, growing stronger with each setback. But the real shift came when humanity started to embrace its newfound unity. As their understanding of the gene deepened, humans began to work together in ways that had once seemed impossible. Governments that had once been fractured by borders and divisions now put their differences aside to face the common enemy. Resources were shared, technology was exchanged, and the human race became a united force, unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. The most striking change was in their approach to warfare. The Resistance, once a fragmented collection of small groups, was now operating as one cohesive army. Every city, every region, every nation was now part of a global effort to repel the invaders. The humans had learned that their strength lay in their ability to adapt, but also in their ability to work together. Where the aliens relied on their advanced technology and might, the humans had learned that cooperation and unity were their true weapons. It wasn't just their physical strength or technological prowess that made the humans dangerous. It was their creativity. Humans began to employ new tactics, ones that the aliens hadn't encountered before. Where the aliens would rely on brute force, the humans would find ways to outthink them. They began using the environment to their advantage, setting traps, launching surprise attacks, and even using the terrain to create defensive positions that the aliens couldn't penetrate. Sci-Fi watched in disbelief as his once vast army began to lose ground. His elite soldiers, once thought to be invincible, were being outsmarted by humans who had no formal military training, only the instinct to survive and the desire to protect their world. With each victory, humanity's confidence grew. They no longer saw themselves as the underdogs. They were learning to fight on equal footing with their invaders. But there was still one weapon the aliens hadn't deployed. It was their final card, the one they had hoped would destroy the humans once and for all. The aliens had access to a weapon so powerful that it could wipe out entire planets. It was a weapon of mass destruction, one that could annihilate Earth and everything on it in a single strike. Xylar hesitated. He knew the consequences of using the weapon. It would mean the complete destruction of Earth, something the alien leadership had always hoped to avoid. They didn't want to destroy the planet. They wanted to conquer it. But now, with defeat seeming inevitable, Xylar considered using the weapon anyway. In his mind, it was the only option left. But there was a problem. The more the aliens had studied the human genome, the more they realized something unsettling. The humans weren't just evolving. They were evolving in ways that could be passed on. It wasn't just about the battles they fought now. The very fight for Earth, the very resistance they had mounted, had triggered a shift in humanity. It was becoming a part of their DNA. This wasn't a mere evolutionary reaction to an alien invasion. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Humanity was evolving into something entirely new. Xylar understood now that the humans would never be the same. If they survived this invasion, they would be more powerful than ever before. It wasn't just about fighting to survive anymore. It was about reshaping their future. If the aliens didn't stop them, humanity would become something far more dangerous than any species Xylar had ever encountered. And that realization hit Xylar hard. He wasn't just facing an enemy that could fight back. He was facing a species that was evolving in real time. One that had no limits, no boundaries, and no end to the possibilities they could reach. It wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about whether the alien race could survive the coming transformation of humanity. In the distance, the Resistance was gearing up for their next move. They knew the aliens were preparing for their final strike, but humanity was no longer afraid. They had found something much more powerful than fear. They had found hope, unity, and the promise of a future they would fight to protect. The war for Earth had taken a new turn. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a fight for the very soul of the human race. The final confrontation was fast approaching. The alien forces, once so confident in their technological superiority, had been pushed to the brink by humanity's unexpected resilience. The battle for Earth had become a contest of survival, a struggle not only for the future of the planet, but for the very identity of the human race. Every passing day had shown that the human spirit was far stronger, far more adaptable than the invaders had ever anticipated. What had begun as a desperate defense against a far more advanced species had turned into a powerful counteroffensive, one that was quickly gaining momentum. Sylar, the alien commander, had never expected this outcome. In his mind, the invasion was a simple matter of overwhelming force and strategic superiority. The humans, he thought, were weak, fragile creatures who would be easy to subjugate. Yet he had underestimated them in every conceivable way. The dormant gene within human DNA had triggered a transformation that no one, not even the most advanced alien scientists, could have foreseen. The more the humans fought, the more they evolved. They grew stronger, smarter, and more united, with each battle forging them into a force that could not be stopped. The aliens, in a final attempt to maintain control, had decided to deploy their most powerful weapon. It was a device so destructive that it could obliterate the entire planet in an instant, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. It was a last-ditch effort to end the war and eradicate humanity once and for all. But even as Sylar prepared to launch this final assault, something gnawed at him. He had seen the change in the humans, the way they had banded together, the way they had adapted not just in the physical sense, but mentally and emotionally as well. They were no longer the vulnerable, disorganized species he had once believed them to be. They were becoming something else entirely. Back on Earth, the human resistance had grown into a well-organized, nearly unstoppable force. No longer scattered and disjointed, the humans had come together in ways that were previously unthinkable. Governments, once divided by borders and ideologies, had put aside their differences to focus on the singular goal of survival. The alien threat had united the planet in a way that no other event in history had. People from all walks of life, from every corner of the globe, had fought alongside each other, pooling their knowledge, resources, and willpower into a global resistance effort that seemed unstoppable. The most remarkable part of this transformation was the evolution of humanity's collective mindset. The gene within human DNA had not only enhanced physical traits, but had also heightened their mental and emotional resilience. No longer were humans driven by fear or desperation alone. They were driven by a newfound sense of purpose, a deep-seated belief that they were not merely fighting for survival, but for the future of their species. The fight for Earth had become a fight for the very soul of humanity. Sylar had underestimated humanity's capacity for adaptation, but what he didn't understand was that this was not merely a physical adaptation. The humans were not just growing stronger in battle, they were evolving into something new, something better. They were learning to work together as one, to think in ways that defied logic and reason, to solve problems and face challenges with a level of ingenuity the aliens had never seen. They were using the very tools the aliens had intended to destroy them with, repurposing alien technology in ways that made the invaders' weapons their own. One of the pivotal moments came when the human resistance finally cracked the code behind the aliens' energy shields. The aliens had used these shields to protect their forces, but the humans had discovered a weakness, an energy frequency that disrupted the shields, rendering them useless. The resistance quickly devised a way to deploy this discovery in the field, and soon alien soldiers found themselves vulnerable to attack in ways they hadn't anticipated. The balance of power was shifting, and the aliens, once so sure of their victory, were now on the defensive. The war had reached a turning point. Sylar had hoped that the ultimate weapon would give him the upper hand, but as the humans continued to grow stronger, the idea of using it seemed increasingly futile. He watched, horrified, as the resistance gained ground, reclaiming city after city, pushing the alien forces back. Even more unsettling was the realization that humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to protect their future, to ensure that their legacy continued, that the mistakes of the past would not repeat. They were fighting for something far greater than just the immediate battle. The aliens, once so confident in their ability to conquer the galaxy, were now facing a species they could not control. It wasn't just the strength of their weapons or the size of their armies that mattered. It was the spirit of humanity, a force that the aliens had completely overlooked. The more they tried to crush humanity, the more the humans grew. They had discovered a strength that could not be measured in weapons or technology. It was a strength born of their will to survive, their adaptability, and their unyielding desire to protect their future. Stylar began to understand that this was not just a battle for Earth. It was a battle for the future of life itself. Humanity, it seemed, was not simply a species to be conquered. They were a force of nature, capable of evolving, of growing, of overcoming. And as the alien forces faltered, Tyler realized that his race might not be the ones to win this war. In fact, the more he thought about it, the more he realized that his species was not destined to rule the galaxy. Humanity was. The humans, with their incredible ability to adapt and evolve, were no longer the fragile, weak species the aliens had once believed them to be. They were becoming something far greater, and that terrified Sylar. They were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to reshape the future of the galaxy, and in that future, the alien race might have no place. As the final battle loomed, the humans knew that they had one shot at victory. The alien weapon was on its way, but so was the global resistance, prepared to make their stand. The fight for Earth had evolved into something much bigger than anyone could have imagined. It was no longer just about repelling an invasion. It was about the survival of an entire species, the future of humanity itself. The last stand would be their greatest test. But as the humans gathered their forces, prepared to face the alien onslaught head-on, they knew one thing for certain. They were no longer fighting for survival alone. They were fighting for their place in the universe. Thylar stood on the precipice of a decision he had never imagined he would face. The weapon that could destroy Earth was in his grasp, yet he now saw that it wasn't a matter of whether he could destroy humanity. It was a matter of whether humanity could be stopped at all. The fight was no longer about conquering Earth. It was about who would shape the future, and the answer, Sylar knew, was uncertain. But as the final battle began, the alien forces were in disarray. Humanity was united, more powerful than ever before, and the tide of the war had turned. The alien weapon would not be used. The aliens had underestimated their enemies in the most catastrophic way possible. The future, it seemed, was no longer theirs to control. And as the humans took their stand, they knew one thing for sure. They would not only survive, they would thrive.